Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by
Mark,
Steve,
A-Bomb,
and we just finished playing Rokoko, which is about making dresses. You can see this is kind of the end of the game, and we've got lots of dresses that have been made all over the board here. Essentially, you're trying to score points in lots of different ways. So typically on your turn, you're going to have a hand of cards, and you pick one of your cards to play, but crucially, there are three kind of classes of dressmaker, if you like. There's the apprentice, the journeyman, who's a bit better, and then the master with the gold thimble here is especially good. And that matters for taking certain actions. So, for example, if I wanted to, I could spend, you kind of play a card, and this is like an extra bonus that you can get, but you also get to take a main action. And main actions you could take would be to acquire materials for dresses, and there's a kind of descending cost here. So if you're taking one off a row with all three, it would cost you 2 coins. So I could take this one, for example, that would cost me 2. Or this will cost me 1, or this one, in fact, will be free. So it's cheaper the more people take these. But when you take it, you can either keep it for the material, this would be like a blue dress, or you can discard it to get the, there's like different kinds of cubes here. Essentially, I think one is thread and one is lace or something, but you kind of need them for certain dresses. So another thing you could do is you could spend a guy to make a dress. So you kind of cash in the materials. You can see this requires certain kinds of cloth and certain thread, for example. So you sort of look through what you get and got, and like I could spend these 2. That would be 4 yellows. This one only requires yellow, so 3. So I would kind of lose the extra one, or I could just take. I could discard those. That would be my 3 yellows. And I'd have to pay, if I did this one, I pay the thread, and you've got to pay the cost as well. So obviously there's cheaper ones down here. At the end of each round they slide down as well. So effectively you're trying to buy the various dresses, but when you buy one of these dresses, they're potentially worth points at the bottom right. Now there's 2 things you can do with it. You can either just sell the dress immediately for 15 coins, money can be quite scarce, or you can kind of flip it over, and you're going to get these 3 points at the end of the game, and you rent it out to the various noble men and women who go to the big posh house. Was this some kind of palace? I'm not sure. But they go on different floors of the palace, and you're scoring points depending on where they go. So, for example, if I put it here, you kind of put your disc on it to indicate that it's yours, and you're fighting for sort of area control. So at the end of the game, whoever has the most in this kind of bottom row here is going to get 4 points, and second most is 1 point. So for each of the different floors in this palace, you're getting points that you're fighting over. And then potentially, at the end of the game, if you have any in this top row, you can sort of ascend them up to the roof and watch the fireworks at the end. But in order to do that, there's another kind of action you can take, which is to place one of your discs down in one of the spaces. So you can see people have put discs here. You have to kind of reserve a spot, effectively, and it costs you money. And when you reserve a spot, it lets you sort of ascend one of your people. And in fact, you can see you're going to get a little bit of a multiplier here for the number of points. So you're trying to fill up these different areas to fight over the points and potentially ascend them as well. There's also points you're kind of racing to get one person into the sections. It's going to get you 6 points if you manage that first as well. Something else you can do is you can buy extra people. After you've played your cards on the next round, you can kind of pick another 3 cards from your deck. But you might want to acquire more cards in sort of deck builder style. And again, these get cheaper the more get bought. So when there's 4 of them out, it costs 5, and then 3 and 1, etc. But these will get you extra special abilities. So for this guy, every time you play him, then for every 3 dresses you got on the board, you're going to get a point. So that's quite handy. But notice the restriction. This one, you can't use the apprentices or the journeyman. Only the master, the guy with the gold thimble, is actually able to hire other people. Again, when you do the dressmaking, the little apprentices can't do the dressmaking bit. So they can kind of acquire the basic materials here, but you've got to be quite careful about which cards you're using in various different places. There's quite a lot of endgame scoring for all kinds of things. For example, you can stick a token here if you pay the money, and then for every sort of set of different coloured dress, you get points at the end of the game. But then at the end, most points wins. What do we think?
For me, this is like the epitome of a good game. It's one of those standard sort of Euro games. I like the fact there's a decent variation amount of scoring, and also with the area control. So there's lots of different ways to get points. I think its biggest strength is probably the purchasing of different workers as they mix up the game a bit, because otherwise you kind of know what you're going to see from the board. I think that's my biggest problem, is the fact that while I enjoyed playing it, I think I've seen everything in this game already. I don't think any replays will. You might complete different with different people, but ultimately, I've seen everything in this game in one go. And so it's not a game that's necessarily going to make me want to come back and play it more. It's good, it's solid, it's easy enough to pick up, but it just doesn't have the thing to point back. And also the theme is literally paper thin, which is why it's getting rethemed to video games, I believe, but we shall see when that comes out.
Okay, Steve?
I think Mark's points are valid there. I think it is a game that doesn't, apart from the cards that come out, doesn't have much replayability. But I would happily play it again. I think the level and weight of this game and the length of time it plays is fine. It was nominated for Game of the Year, the same year Concordia and Istanbul won. Istanbul won, Concordia should have won, and this is probably a second place in my opinion. I really like it. I think when you're going to the spots, it's kind of like a balancing mechanism. You want to be first there, you want to have the MasterCards in your hand, because the MasterCards can do every action. And so if you're going to the point where you hire a new guy, if you hire a master, well, if you're going there first, you're paying the most money, and money's quite tight. Sometimes you make a dress just to sell it off, to kind of recoup the money that allows you to go out, buy the guy you need or pay for the resources you need for the next dress you need to make. Because the dress matter, kind of where you put them matters. But in games like this before, I've seen that towards the end of the game, everything's full up. In this game, it doesn't seem to be the case. At least the game I played and the game these guys have played, at the end of the game, there were still spots available. And so it's timed very well. The number of rounds seems to be the right amount of rounds to do it. And the choices you have in your turn are absolutely fine. You've got, like, this guy's got 6 choices because he's a master. This guy's got 3 choices because he's an apprentice. You've got a little balancing act. And if you leave yourself with too few masters, because you've got this kind of, when you're picking your hand of cards, it's not a deck builder in such that you're drawing the top 3 cards of your deck. Otherwise, you could find yourself with no master on this turn and unable to do certain actions on the board. You get to pick from the face-down cards in your deck, which goes in your hand. Brilliant. That's a really nice way of doing it. So you are deck building as such, and you are editing your deck, but the cards you discard then mean you can't get them back next round necessarily. So if you kind of have the wrong mix of the right sort of cards in your deck, you could find you have yourself, you poor planning, getting really poor turns later on.
Abel?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good, solid Euro. If you like your Euros, you'll play it, you'll enjoy it. I agree a little bit with Mark in terms of longevity. Not so sure on this. I was quite surprised, but there's quite a lot of interaction because you can see everything on the board. So you can see, these are the different cloths, these are the things you can make. Yet somehow, maybe it was just because of us playing, being used to this, there wasn't a lot of APing. And I looked at this and I'd expect there to be a lot of APing in the game, just because there's that much interaction and you can sort of guess what everyone's going to do. The only bit I didn't like is the fact that when you get the cloths, they're face down. So you almost need a pen and paper or vague memory to know what people's got and so what options of clothes they could go for. I think overall the problem I've got with the game as a negative would be both the theme, which is a little bit boring, but also the artwork's not great. It's a bit drab. It's a little bit, there's not the detail, it's not like real high end. And also the rooms, there's not anything in there like, you could imagine a good artist would add a little dog in the corner and a little, different paintings, something where you could stare at the board and, and look at, which they've done in a few other games. But in this, it's like, no, it's pretty drab. This is the room. Here's where you go. Almost trying to not take away from the bits which go on the board.
Rating?
I think I'd give it 6.5.
Steve?
I think that's fine. I think my issue with it is that when you're counting your scores at the end and you're trying to count the different yellow dresses, you go, okay, so that yellow dress is, no, that's not so much, that's the red person's. And you're trying to match all these different colours, all these different tokens at the end of the game. This guy's a green dress with a blue token, that's a red dress with a yellow token and stuff, and so that can get a bit confusing. I think it's a fine new game. I think if you like your games, you should play it once, potentially. The second playthrough, you might not get anything else for it. 7 out of 10.
Okay. Mark?
I give it 6.5.
Okay. I really enjoyed it. I also like the artwork. I think A-Bomb's right. It's maybe not quite as detailed as it could be, but I thought it was very colourful, particularly because you've got all the different colours of tokens and all the different colours of dresses. As Steve said, it can be a little bit tricky, keeping track of all the colours, but I think it looks great in terms of table presence. I like the artwork on the cards as well. In terms of the Euro, I really enjoyed it. It's a bit more interactive than you'd expect it to be because you're racing for a lot of the different places. There's one place where I managed to beat A-Bomb out. I was very satisfied with that. But then another row, which I was sure I was going to get A-Bomb beat me out. So oh, great. So you really do need to pay attention, as they say, to what other people are doing. I don't see why you couldn't just play with the materials face up. as you say, because you don't really want to keep track of everyone's resources, but it does matter. You know, the blue cloth is very rare. The blue dresses are rare, so when they come up, it's like, oh, has he got a blue cross? Did he get one earlier? You know, is he going to use it now? Do I need to race him for this? But I really like it. It's a bit of engine building, but with the racing as well, you can't spend too much time engine building. I think it's very solid. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. All right, thanks for watching. That was Rokoko.